So welcome, warm welcome, lovely human beings. My name is Hanna Kampman. I'm one of the senior lecturers at University of East London. I'm really proud to be working here at our university, partly because we are such a fantastic, diverse community where you get to kind of hear from all of these wonderful human beings and their research and everything that they are doing. Today, I am so excited to talk about one of my passion areas that I work a lot around, which is around sports and adversities and how athletes navigate some of the most difficult times in their lives as well. But before we get going, I'm giving you a little bit of an overview of what to expect from this session. So my background is in positive psychology. And before that, my background is in holistic sports coaching. So those two worlds really kind of very nicely came together when I arrived to London. It's now a decade ago, but anyways. So I am teaching at the positive psychology program here at the University of East London. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit in the beginning because it kind of gives a color to how I look at things and mostly how I am researching things, what kind of questions I choose to ask. It's not about denying the other fields, but it has a particular lens. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. And I'm also going to talk about a little bit about well-being, because this is why or how we look at athletes particularly. So we always have this well-being perspective next to the performance perspective as well. So I'm keen on understanding the overall well-being of athletes, not just their peak performance in sports arenas. And their well-being is always my top priority in some ways. And then we're going to dive into this part of our lives that unfortunately, none of us can avoid, which is kind of challenges and adversities. And we are all going to go through some tricky times in our lives. And I'm going to talk about what kind of challenges athletes usually go through. But it's good to remember that they are human beings as well. So if there are athletes out there, you know what I'm talking about. We can have adversities that are very related to sports, but also we can have very normal everyday challenges that all of us will navigate through in our lives. And then there are those kind of more severe challenges that kind of shake us to the core. And we're going to talk about that a bit more. And that's really where I research quite a bit. Throughout this, I am going to ask you to do some things or exercises just to get you thinking. I have this huge passion to kind of bring theories into a normal day level so that if you hear a theory, it doesn't stay floating somewhere high up, but hopefully you find a way to make it relevant in your life, and you can maybe test it a little bit and see, okay, so this is what it's trying to say. So maybe I can see how it works in my life. So even though this is about athletes and kind of high adversities in life, I do think that you can easily use this information in your own life and maybe kind of road test some of the ideas that I'm presenting here today. So any questions, just let me know. There are two psychological theories that really lend themselves quite well for this area of going through difficult times in life. And I think one of them you have probably heard. So we're going to talk about that a bit. This is resilience. I think it's a word that everybody has heard. And then there is another one that is not so well known called post-traumatic growth, which is almost this idea of what does not kill us or sometimes makes us stronger. So it's related to that kind of known wisdom in our lives. But we, of course, research when is that true? When is it actually working in that way? But that might be a little bit unfamiliar to some of us. But I will talk about that as well today, and you hopefully get to know this lovely theory a bit better today. So let's get going. So what is positive psychology? I just want to emphasize that it's not about denying any other areas of psychology. It's just this call for action that we should be concerned with the best things in life, the strengths, as much as we are with weaknesses or challenges in life. And we should be as interested in building the best things in life as repairing the worst, and as concerned with living and making the lives of ordinary people better and fulfilling, rather than just focusing on healing things that are really challenging our lives, like mental illnesses. And I want to really emphasize that nobody in positive psychology would say that that work isn't important. It's very important. We just look at this other side of the story and try to understand that a little bit better, because it was forgotten for a while in our research endeavors. So that's why we are looking at this area. And we also very hugely have this strength approach, which is not only known to positive psychology. It's been around for a while. But the way we do research and the way we tend to look at things, if I'm working with an athlete, I of course want to understand what are the challenges, what is going wrong, and how to help to navigate those. But I'm at the same time very interested what is going right, what is already working for this person, what is already strong, and how can we build on that. So I'm really looking at their resources, their potentials, their competencies, their motivation, and their own expertise, and using that and those things as building blocks when I'm trying to plan where will we travel next. So I'm really about it. I'm really interested in building those both sides at the same time. So not just kind of focusing on, okay, we have a challenge here, we're going to focus on that, but also at the same time highlighting what is good, what is unique, what is strong about you, and kind of making you aware of that. I think we live in a world where we tend to know quite well what is not working or the things that we need to improve, but very rarely people tell us what are our strengths, what are we good at, what are we strong at. So that's something that we very much try to bring into the conversation when we're working with athletes or people in general. It doesn't have to be athletes. It could be, if you're not just listening and you're not an athlete, this is also about you. So you have unique strengths and capabilities that I would be very interested to understand when working with you. We also have this kind of idea that we are quite keen on discussing. So when it comes to athletes, for example, just the mere lack of mental health illness. So the athlete is not going through, let's say, anxiety or depression. That's not enough. So we don't think that that is mental health. So we think that just because individual is not suffering currently doesn't mean that they're flourishing either. And we also think that just because somebody has, for example, a mental illness diagnosis, they couldn't be flourishing. So we do think that these things are much more complicated than just one end or the other. Somebody could be managing their mental illness quite well and have a lot of things in their lives that allows them to flourish with that particular challenge. And then there are people who might not have an official diagnosis, but might not be flourishing either, might not be thriving in their lives and kind of enjoying it for fully. So these are the kind of ideas that we're interested when we work with athletes. So if you go back to that idea of what I said in the beginning, when I'm working, if I am approaching an athlete, I want to know that they are doing well beyond the sports, and that they are also, it's not just about peak performance, but it is also about that wonderful human being behind the sport. So one of these theories that we look at, and now this is a task for you. So if you are up to it, this is personal, so I don't know if you answered this, so you can do whatever you want. So you can answer however you want and as honestly as you want. I'm not going to ask you about this, but this is one of our well-being theories that we kind of might use when we're kind of trying to understand, are there areas in athletes flourishing that could be better or that we could work on, or are there strengths that we can absolutely already build on? So this is the PERMA model. And it comes out of these different components. And I'm going to use a very powerful word, happiness, but I'm meaning it in a very broad sense. And it means many different things to people. But this is one of the things that we just cannot chase down. It is one of these things that we just cannot, the more we're almost trying to be happy, the less we are. It's very elusive in our lives. But there are these known components in our lives that we could bring into our everyday living, and that will bring us flourishing and well-being. And that is what PERMA model does. So it starts with positive emotions. And this is really about this is quite easy to understand. Positive emotions, just having a lot of those feelings in your life. And I want to emphasize that no emotion is negative in a sense that it's not good for us. We need all the emotions. They are information. We need to listen to them. They have always a message for us. So it's good to kind of go and listen. What is this emotion trying to tell me? That being said, we understand some of the more challenging emotions quite well, but we until recently, we understood the positive emotions a bit less. But now we understand that they have this amazing potential in our lives, that when we experience them, we tend to be more creative. We tend to see more solutions. So next time you are trying to solve a problem, you're starting to get a little bit annoyed about it, try to pop in your favorite music, do a little dance or drumming or air guitar, and see how that changes your problem solving skills. So obviously that's a very kind of tiny surface level example, but it does broaden our thinking a little bit and can be so useful resource in the trickiest of times. So now what I'm asking you all to do is kind of think on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I think right now in my life I have positive emotions? Just kind of pop your number. And this is just for you, so you don't have to worry about sharing it here. And you can go back also in your life and look at situations where does this kind of joy and happy feelings come from for you personally. Like I said, they are very personal and it's not the same thing for everybody. Then we need engagement in life. So this is interesting for athletes because they tend to be doing the very thing that originally gave them these kind of flow experiences, these experiences where time disappears and you're really focused on doing something that is really meaningful for you and interesting to you. These are actually very important moments in our lives, that we have something that we're doing and enjoying to do so much that it kind of sweeps us away. So think about how much that you have this in your life, that you're doing things as a hobby or with friends or even as a professional thing that really takes you with that task. So you forget time and you're engaged with it. So this is very important for us as well, that we have these kind of experiences. Then relationships. We are relational beings, people. So we need each other and we need good quality relationships. And this is a very cornerstone of our flourishing usually in life. And this, again, means different things to different people. Some people need those kind of very close relationships where you can share thoughts and ideas. And then some people just need more people around them. But anyways, however it looks like for you, just kind of evaluate, how are your relationships in your life at the moment? Do you keep in contact as much as you would like to with your friends and so forth? And other relationships, of course, it could be relatives, parents, sisters, brothers, whoever it is. The kind of big relationship net is very valuable for us and helps us navigate very difficult times as well. And then meaning and purpose. Sounds like a big word, and it can be a big word. So if we are talking about meaning of life, I have no answers to that. But meaning in life is very personal, and it means what brings meaning to your life. And it could be your hobbies, it could be that you're doing something for other people, maybe charity work or just in your family, that you have this kind of sense of purpose, that you matter. Mattering is very important to us human beings. So it's very important that we have things in our lives that we feel that this is where I matter and this is meaningful for me and I'm doing this for those reasons, and I get kind of comfort from that. And then finally, achievements as well. So that we have things in our lives that we work towards, we maybe have goals for them, and we are driving towards achieving them, and we have a clear understanding when are we actually achieving them. So this could be your tests. You might have a particular test in mind. In athletes, this is usually very connected to those kind of micro moments of winning throughout the athletic career, because it's usually a long process to navigate through an athletic career, and can be in the beginning, you have to have a lot of those small goals so that you, if you have just that one, and it's in 4 years' time, that can be quite challenging to navigate. So those kind of are the main ideas around this particular well-being model. So I would love you to think, how did you rate yourself in each item? And if there is a particular one that is a little bit lower, then you can go and think, okay, so but where does this come from for me? Like, is there a time where I could potentially spend a bit more time with my friends, or have you forgotten a very beloved hobby that for some reason you haven't done in a while? Maybe it's worthwhile bringing that back and then checking how it impacts your scores in that kind of casual test. It's not a very scientific one, but it wasn't never meant to be. It's a thinking tool. I always kind of use these kind of thinking tools so that these theories become more real to us. I also wanted to invite you, if you're interested in this, something that I sometimes use with people, and this can be used with athletes as well, is to kind of imagine your life in 5 years, that everything has gone really well, and you have worked hard and achieved all the things that you could, and where are you? So dream a little. You could write about this. This is something you can screenshot this if you're interested in this. And you could try about writing 20 minutes, let's say 4 days, and just kind of think about how would that look like. And sometimes what I can reveal from these conversations and these exercises are that, you know, for example, for athlete, there might be things that we expected to see, that they are winning a particular game or they are winning a particular competition. But then there are usually other clues in those stories as well. Who is there to celebrate them? Where are they? What are they doing? And so forth. So these can be quite nice clues about where do you want to invest your time next to the athletic career as well. So you want to keep your friends close and your family close and so forth. And the things that are important to you, different things to different people. But it can be a kind of nice exercise to get to understand what things are actually quite important to you. And then you can create goals towards that. So that's an invitation if you want to do that. That's something that we do in positive psychology. And sometimes with athletes, it could be called the best athletic self or best sport gear or something like that. And then, obviously, we sometimes need to prepare for adversity, which is a silly thing to say because it's one of these things that we don't want to prepare for. And it is adversity because it's usually so surprising that it's hard to prepare for. And it might be very difficult to kind of know what to do in these difficult times. And we all go through these difficult times. It's not just athletes or kind of elite athletes. It's definitely everybody. And this is true with any kind of athlete that is going through their career. They are both kind of challenges. So they have these challenges that are very sport specific and challenges that are just because we are human beings. Just in case, I always want to say this. We are talking about a little bit sensitive topics as well. So if anything bubbles up right now, that's completely normal. We are talking about, adversities and challenges, and it could be bringing something up to the surface, which is, in my humble opinion, actually quite lovely because it's good to be aware of those feelings and thoughts. But it's good also that if something is bubbling up, talk to somebody, have a chat with somebody. It could be kind of reminding you that I'm still here and you haven't dealt with this. I would love to be talking to somebody about this. So it's a good feeling, but just be aware of that and act accordingly if needed. So common challenges among athletes, it could be sort of mental health challenges, anxiety, depression. It could be changes to lifestyle. So we know that athletes often, especially younger athletes, travel. They move countries for sports scholarships. And that can be actually a massive shock to the system if you are traveling and moving and uphealing everything that you know, and you're coming to another country where everything is different. It can be just competition pressures, competition for places. So teams are not always lovely places to be because there's a lot of competition for particular placements and so forth. It can be financial pressures, or kind of specific to particular sport. So you can see there are a lot of things on this slide that I kind of highlighted, and this is obviously just a kind of tiny peek to an athletic life. But athletes will travel through difficult times, and some of those challenges are minor and some of them are much more harder to deal with. And this is where I usually work with. So I work with these kind of very highly stressful life events that have life-altering implications for these individuals. So these, we often describe these kind of very, sometimes you hear the word trauma. I'm very intentionally avoiding that word because it's tricky to define and there are a lot of definitions going around there. But I'm just going to I'm choosing today to talk about highly stressful and challenging life events. But these are very specific ones that I'm talking about. So they have this, what they call seismic impact in our lives. So sometimes we use a metaphor of an earthquake. So it shakes the foundations of our lives. So something that we are known that is a particular way is kind of shattered and changed. And it kind of requires a lot of thinking from us, a lot of adapting from us, and it's a shock to the system. People might have this feeling of before and after very heavily. There is a me before the event and me after the event. It is out of the ordinary and unexpected. So that's why I said it's tricky to say prepare for adversity, because this is one of the characteristics of it. It's hard to prepare in some ways. And it has long-lasting implications. So I want to emphasize that if you are going through a difficult time, it's absolutely human and normal to react to it. So it's absolutely normal to go through a period of challenging thoughts and maybe reminders of the experience. But then when it starts to be prolonged and we cannot kind of move on, then we are starting to potentially seek help and need help. And of course, it's great if you have that help available throughout the journey. That never, of course, hurts. But these kind of highly challenging life situations they are a bit different and a lot different from the ordinary challenges that all of us will navigate through. And they kind of destroy our personal narrative. So we were one thing before, and now we are this other thing, and we're not sure how to piece it together. And one of the theories that I mentioned before is resilience. And I bet you have heard of this. Resilience is one of these most used words, but it is actually a bit complicated word because we have many definitions of it. And now again, I'm going to invite you to think about this. Which of these definitions do you kind of lean on? Which of them sound familiar to you or resonate with you? Have a little think. So recovery resilience, and I'm using this tree metaphor that has been used in literature that I think describes these different resilience types quite beautifully. So there's this tree metaphor. So this is a tree that bends in the storm. So it kind of moves a little, but it comes back as it was before. So, and this is called rebound resilience or bounce back resilience. Quite often we hear the resilience being described in this way. And it's kind of minor or temporary disruptions to our well-being and performance. So athlete might have tiny kind of challenges with their practice or their performance at that point, but they very quickly return to back to normal functioning. So you can probably already hear that there's something about also adversity here, that it's not maybe the most challenging thing that causes this type of resilience. So it might be a bit kind of also the impact, the adversity might be a bit more mellow, let's put it that way. Then other way to look at resilience is this resistance resilience. So this is sometimes understood as robust resilience, or standing strong in the face of adversity. So this is a tree that is strong and it has roots and it's not moving with the storm, it's standing strong. And it's kind of this protective quality that we see in some individuals, that they maintain their well-being and performance even under pressure. And this is sometimes how resilience is also understood and described. And this is why I go through this, because I say resilience, you say resilience, but we might mean two very different things. And then finally, there's something called reconfiguration. And this is capacity to rebound from adversity, and you come back with strengthened and more resourceful. But here the tree does have some parts that are kind of hurt, so it might lose a branch or two, or something has happened and it's growing potentially new characteristics. So this is going beyond coping and adaptation, and we are almost talking about growth at this point, positive growth, which is connecting to the other theory that I'm going to talk about. So these different things are different ways that we look at people going through tricky times. I want to emphasize here that there are characteristics in us individuals that can make us more resilient. They can be even biological. So we have potentially particular type of chemistry in our body that handles stress hormones better. But more than that, I do say that it's also about resources. What do we have in our lives? Who is there to hold our hands? What do we know who to talk to when something difficult happens? Do we have adults and people that are safe around us, and so forth? So it's about resources as well. And some of these things, luckily, are something that we can learn. They are skills. So we can think differently. We can take perspective. We can do, I think you have probably heard a lot about mindfulness. That's one of the best ways to kind of calm our bodies down in the moment of something challenging going on. Because what happens when we are stressed and when something is going on, our mind tends to either escape into the future, we are worried what's going on there, or back into the in our past, thinking that something sad that happened to us. So mindfulness is a really nice way of calming our bodies and reminding us that we're actually here right now, nothing to worry about in this particular moment. And again, it allows us to do a bit more. Perspective taking and these kind of what we call cognitive behavioral techniques in psychology, leaning on thinking differently, behaving in different ways. These are very useful in resilience as well. So one example could be that you kind of become a bit of a pet detective of your own thinking. So athletes might be thinking, actually have a really negative inner dialogue during a competition where they are, without noticing, telling themselves, oh, I'm not going to get through this. This is always going to go wrong. So being aware of that kind of dialogue, first of all, and then starting to unpack that and question that can be really powerful for athletes and can, again, enhance that resilience. So we are kind of looking at what we are saying to ourselves and going, well, that is simply not true. Like you have all these competitions where you actually did really well. So what you're saying is not actually factual. So we have a lot of these techniques that we can actually learn. And that makes me quite excited, because anything that we can teach or learn is then hopefully available for more people. So one of the things I'm going to ask you to do, I don't know if you're doing this, and I'm obviously, again, not going to force you to report back, but try this. So draw a circle if you have pen and paper, and you can think about this as well, but it's more powerful if you draw it. Let's put it this way. And put pie slices of things that are important to you. If they're very important to you, give them a big slice. And if they are important but not as important, give them a smaller slice. Kind of put that pie into different pieces. I'm going to do something really daunting for the editors. I'm going to be quiet for a little while in an online lecture where we don't know if people are actually doing the exercise, but I'm going to give you a chance to try that. So a little while. Okay. Hopefully have some slices of pie. This works the best if you kind of manage to slice the pie well before I say the next thing. So now I would love you to draw another circle and then kind of cut again slices of pie, but this time think about, where does your time go? So what are you using most of your time doing? And of course, the idea here is not to kind of push you into an existential crisis of, whoa, what is life about and where is my time going? But to kind of give you an idea is that if these two bubbles are a little bit different, so you have a lot of things that are very important to you, but you don't seem to have time for them, maybe you can find ways to bring some of those elements into your current life that currently aren't there. Let's say that you would have a big pie slice of friends, that it's so important that you spend time with your friends. Your friends are very valuable for you. But now you have traveled to another country, you are an athlete and you are spending a lot of time doing your sports and you don't really know people yet. This can be really kind of one of the things that is hindering your resilience and maybe potentially challenging you a bit. So what you can do is find ways of bringing friends more into your life. So you can really think about creative ways of reconnecting with your friends, making schedules that you kind of chat with them, have video calls with them, so that you don't leave it to chance, but you actually do proactively something so that you can connect with these people and bring them back into your life. So it's a kind of a funny exercise, but the aim here is really to start thinking about those things that are important to you and give energy to you, that are equally important to hold you well when you are doing your athletic career and you're focusing a lot on this massive thing that is very important to you, whilst other things are also, and they are hopefully there after the athletic career is over as well. So it's just not about overhauling your whole life and changing everything, but it's about, bringing pieces of those important things back into your life if they have been left behind a little bit. So then post-traumatic growth, this is where I definitely spend most of my time researching. And I mainly do something called qualitative research, which means it's just one way of saying that I talk a lot to people. Oh, actually, that was a very bad way of describing. I listen a lot to people. So I listen to their stories. I ask questions, but I listen to how their experience of something is. So what I mostly do, I interview athletes with acquired physical disabilities. So individuals who went through an accident or severe illness that caused them to lose some ability in their body or limbs or body parts in general. So they have gone through something really highly challenging, life-shattering, and it has changed a lot of how they navigate the world and how they are in this world. And these are the people that I have the absolute pleasure and luxury to talk to. So I've talked to a lot of Paralympic athletes, but also athletes who are doing adaptive team sports for leisure. And this picture that you're hopefully looking at now is kind of a very simple description of what post-traumatic growth essentially is. It's this idea that when we have an adverse event, we have these different trajectories where we might go. So some people might kind of struggle with the aftermath of it, and some people might go to that resilience, or they might come back to kind of previous levels of functioning psychologically, and then some people will go beyond. And these are the people that we are really talking to when we are talking about post-traumatic growth, these individuals who feel that their life is somehow better due to the navigating of this highly challenging life situation. So it's not so much about the event itself, it's the person trying to navigate the aftermath of it. So these are the kind of people that I get to talk to a lot. I have to say I'm very humbled to get to listen to these stories, and I've learned a lot from them. So I'm going to share some of their pearls of wisdom today, and you can see if that resonates with you as well. So I want to start with this metaphor that Stephen Joseph has created to describe post-traumatic growth. So sometimes you have this beloved vase and it knocks down and it shatters a little. It goes into pieces, but you can still put it back together. It's still the vase. You might see how it's put together, and it might be even stronger depending on the way that you glued it back together. But then there are times when the impact is so strong and massive that the vase is shattered into smithereens. And at this point, it's not possible to build the vase into what it was before. but with time, you can create something equally beautiful and wonderful, a mosaic. So this is how Stephen Joseph describes this experience of post-traumatic growth, that it's almost quite literally piecing together the pieces that were shattered by this event, due to this event. And you can probably look at, you're probably seeing a vase with golden, kind of lovely golden repairs in it. And this is a Japanese art form called golden repair. And in there, they believe that when something has suffered damage, we want to celebrate its new features. And they use gold and other kind of valued metals to prepare the vase. So I think that's just a gorgeous cultural way of describing how we sometimes go through these very difficult times, and how we repair and how we work really hard to go through them. So post-traumatic growth is defined as transformative change. So it's somehow very noticeable, the change that you're going through. And it is because you are struggling with a highly challenging life circumstance. So you are really trying to put those pieces together. And these are action-orientated and embodied, in my humble opinion, what means that when an athlete goes through this and they are reporting growth, we can see it in their behaviors. They choose to spend more time with family. They choose to do the things that are important to them. And I'm going to talk about that a bit more soon. And also it changes their relationship in their bodies as well, how they respect their body, how they listen to their body, and so forth. So it's not just a thinking thing, in my humble opinion. It shows in everything that we do and in our relationship with our body as well. So these are the characteristics of post-traumatic growth. So I'm going to go through them one by one. So these are things that we can continuously hear in research. I keep hearing my participants, my athletes talk about this when they navigate through that journey of being severely injured. So they talk about personal strength, appreciation of life, relating to others, new possibilities, and spiritual and existential change. I'm going to go through them one by one and give you a couple of examples from my research so that you can really hear what they talk about when they are navigating these challenging times. So personal strength first. So this is really this idea that, and it's not, of course, these athletes, it could be any one of you listening. If you've gone through a highly challenging life situation, some people might think that because I went through this, I can go through anything. So there is this sense of strength and understanding who you are to some people. So I think Diana is describing, I think what was important for me about team sports. Okay, so my body had been wrecked effectively by this, but I was able to become strong and physical. And yeah, my body had not only survived that, but it could actually be strong and it could actually be world class. So she's a world class Paralympic athlete who went through a severe illness and lost both of her legs, for example. So this is one, and I want to emphasize that these names are fake names, so they are not real names. I'm protecting the identity of these individuals. So I won't tell you when were they Paralympians and so forth. But it's really this kind of experience that we quite often think, sorry, my voice is not very strong today. So we quite often think that I couldn't go through that. These individuals very often hear that very saying that, oh, I could not go through what you went through. You're so strong. We often as human beings are surprised by our capacity to deal with difficult times and kind of really power through and learn and find resources to navigate those difficult times. So this is something that people quite often report in post-traumatic growth research. And then there's appreciation of life. And this is very understandable when, with these kind of very, very highly challenging life situations, there's often, we know how vulnerable we are. There's usually a life-threatening situation at hand. So somehow we are scared for our life or life of a loved one. And that kind of immediately can start this process of us understanding how valuable and important this one particular life that we get to navigate is for us. So appreciation of life is well-reported post-traumatic growth outcome that people talk about. For example, there's a quote from a particular study that I did. before this injury, this person used to do this kind of 80-hour weeks and was really targeting to get $500,000 to take kind of the money was the main important thing for their lives. And then they were saying, now I'm totally not into that. I do not want to work in this particular city where they make a lot of money, even though that is where all the big money jobs are. It is not worth it to me. My priorities have drastically changed. My family and my friends and my relationships that I have with my community and giving back, things like that. And then the final kind of sentence is really wakes you up. They say, I used to be quite anxious, stressed all the time about nothing. I always laugh and say, then I broke my back and I have real things to worry about. So this kind of level of perspective taking as well. And people tend to talk about that they really go, because of this challenge, they go back to the basics and think, what is actually important in my life? So what do I want to use my time for? Relating to others, you already heard a little bit about that in that particular quote. There was definitely parts of that. People both lose people because potentially people are not quite understanding what they are navigating through, but they are also often surprised by the love and kindness of other people around them and new people that have gone through similar things that they have. So these athletes that I work with often talk about the adaptive team environment being this very inspirational space where you first of all see other people who have gone through what you have gone through, and they are succeeding, they're thriving, they're doing great things, but they also understand the particular journey that you're on. So you can talk very openly and there is an understanding between individuals. So we can already learn from that it's very important in difficult times to surround yourself with people that understand what you're going through as well. So this is a particular quote from Bethany. When she was describing this kind of theme environment, she said, being accepted. I think if you have acquired disability and you have not grown up disabled and you suddenly find your world turned upside down and the friends you have grown up with, they are uncertain how to be with you, even though you have not changed as a person in terms of who you are internally to be able to come somewhere, and your disability isn't an issue. It's, you are just you. So that's important. So she's really describing this environment where you can be yourself, but also these wonderful beings who understand what you're navigating through. And then new possibilities. Individuals often talk about this, how, first of all, it connects to obviously all the other ones that I've talked about, people really recognizing what is important to them. So they might change their direction in life quite drastically sometimes. They might go back to those hobbies that were important. But there's also an element, especially with these athletes that I talked about, because of the acquired physical disabilities, sometimes they lost something in their lives. I talk about trauma often as a thief. So it steals some aspects of your life, and what it steals is very different for individuals. So even if the experience is very similar, like here, acquired physical disabilities, what it steals from you is often very different as well. So some people lost their jobs or couldn't do them anymore, or the environment wasn't built in a way that they could do it. So there was that kind of grief that they had to deal with. But also they found and saw and seeked a lot of new opportunities and possibilities. And I have added a quote from Edward, who kind of talks about this, how he got to represent UK, Great Britain in Paralympic Games, and how that made him feel. So you're representing your country, that is like a huge thing, especially a nation like ours, where we are so proud of who we are, and whatever I think, that's what it is. There is no better feeling. There's 12 of you there out of hundreds of people that would love to wear that jersey, to be there, and especially when you make the starting 5 as well. You are 5 out of hundreds of kids in this country who would love to do that. Yeah, it's a good feeling, a very good feeling. So through that kind of original struggle and navigation, Edward, for example, found himself in this place where he had really captured his opportunities and saw a lot of new opportunities and possibilities and went after them as well. And then the final bit is the spiritual and existential change that we see in people. So this idea that I think my athletes mostly speak about this fact that they really feel that they're part of humanity as athletes. So they have gone through very difficult times, and they understand that I'm one person, and there are many of us here, and we are all on this tiny thing that is called Earth. I think that was the most common theme that came out of my participant pools, but it could be religious or spiritual in other ways as well. People are often reporting some kind of shifts in their thinking. So, for example, here Bethany is describing, now I face different challenge, and it is about fulfilling that really. Otherwise, you kind of feel you have shortchanged yourself a little bit. I think now my purpose has changed a little again. And I think I feel that I'm now in a position that I'm able to give back now to the younger people in the group. So I've often saw in these people that I talk to about post-traumatic growth is that there's a point when you originally start very kind of focused on your own athletic career and going through that and excelling at that and finding your power, your opportunities and your growth opportunities. But then it at some point turned towards others, and people wanted to give back. So they wanted to give back to their communities. They wanted to give back to the younger athletes. And I think there's a very healthy idea in an athletic career, which is often very short. And we have to have things before, during, and after that are there, and not just a kind of a one peak moment in our lives. I want to really highlight that it's absolutely normal not to experience post-traumatic growth. I would never want anybody to go away from this talk and say that everybody needs to experience growth or grow from their highly challenging life situations. This is not at all what I'm saying, but it's something that people are reporting, and it's exciting to learn from their stories and understand what they are going through. And it's also normal that some people just report that they grew in a particular area that was very valuable for them, or a couple of them, not all of them. So growth is very complex and also often coexists with the distress. So I often say that these athletes, even though they were reporting these growth experiences, the darkness is always dancing with the light as well. So there is that kind of it's normal to feel sadness towards the things that you have lost. And it just kind of tells us that we had something that was important to us and of value. So it's kind of understandable that it travels with us. So I don't want anybody to think that these athletes are just kind of past their highly challenging life situations, but they are definitely finding a lot of growth in their lives and new opportunities and all these things as well. So it's particularly in this population, the prior story is more common. So we tend to talk about acquired physical disabilities in a way that there's a lot more of us looking at this experience and thinking, oh, that must be horrible. How are you surviving that? And less of those stories where we celebrate the thriving, the success, and the flourishing of these individuals. So I do think that both stories are equally important for us to hear. I wanted to also highlight my theory that came out of one of my studies, and really hopefully shows the complex nature of the growth. So where that kind of originally that highly challenging situation that the athlete went through, it kind of creates this downward spiral where you are slowly understanding the full implications of that situation to your life. And there's a phase where you're not going downwards, but you're not going upwards either. And then when you start to build that journey upwards, it's complex and it is not linear, and you might go down a little and forward a bit, and it's very complex story, and that's normal. And I just genuinely want to highlight that. I did something, and this is now in a process. I'm kind of gonna test it, but I'm gonna just. I think we can sometimes learn from these stories. We don't have to go through highly challenging life situations necessarily. And we can kind of look at those 5 areas that these people are talking about, these athletes are talking about, and those can be our little pieces of resilience and strength and growth in our lives. So I've created this kind of intervention of sorts where you can take pictures of these different areas that are important, whichever calls for you, let's say appreciation of life. So you could go out and take a picture of things that for you represent appreciation of your life, so that you're appreciating this one life that you have, or personal strength. Maybe you have something that really represents personal strength to you. And you can also do this by going through your phone right now. So you can open your phone. We have so many pictures on my phone, don't we? So it's not, at least I do. So you can go through your phone and just kind of maybe find one thing that immediately now connects with you, potentially relating to others, and find that picture and think about a little bit, why did you choose that particular picture? How does it talk to you about relating to others? Why is it so important to you when you think about relating to others? And kind of you can even write a little reflective note on that. But this way, if you want to try that out, it might help you to tap into some of these things that these athletes have certainly taught me, and other definitely people who have traveled through these difficult times as well. I think that was actually it. I was supposed to have a thank you slide there, but it was a picture of a picture of my old study. But that was it for me. I kind of hope that it was roughly about 50 minutes, so that if anybody has questions or anybody wants to share anything, we have time to take questions as well. But thank you so much. If you don't have questions, I just want to say, and you need to go immediately, I want to thank you for listening and for being here. And hopefully you got some ideas with you from this. So thank you. Oh, thank you. Very kind of you. Thank you. I am checking the chat if anybody has questions, and I'm happy to answer them. But you're just being very kind right now. Thank you so much. It was lovely to spend late evening with, or it's not that late, but it feels very late because it's very dark already. So thank you. Yeah, I think that is it. Thank you all. Hopefully, whatever you're doing, and if you are thinking of joining us, hopefully see you around at UEL. That would be really lovely. If you are potentially thinking about chatting with us, that would be wonderful. It would be wonderful to see you and come and say hi if you happen to bump into me in our corridors. Mwah! Talk to you later and have a lovely, lovely evening. Yeah. Bye bye.